Hello and welcome back to Blood and Ashes. This is episode 26 and I am your host Mo, and I'm joined once again by my dear friends Vili.
Bonum ves Perrin.
And Jody.
Oye beltaloda.
Any nerd worth his salt knows what Joe's about, but why don't you enlighten us, Vil?
Well, firstly, I have no idea what Joe's about, so I'm not that worth nerdy salt.
You're out.
You're just regular salt.
I'm just regular salt. Mine was just pure straight Latin.
Okay.
I'm surprised we haven't reached Latin. I mean, wow. Now you have to do Greek
Going
next time.
old school.
I've been just founding so many languages. My trouble is really pronouncing it. The task is real, man.
And you don't recognize Bell to Speak from The Expanse?
I haven't watched The Expanse or read it like you guys.
Okay, geez. I think this podcast might be over.
Yeah, that's it. I'm out of here.
The Expanse has been there on my list, but as you guys know, when it comes to television, I tend to watch things really, really late and spend my current time playing video games. So shoot me
And
for it.
rewatching Rick and Morty over and over.
No, I've just finished
No.
Deadwood. I can have a whole
Okay,
podcast about Deadwood.
you're absolved. That's
Yeah,
fine.
all right.
Prioritize Deadwood. All good. You're back in the game. I was going to say insert preamble here, but I think we've covered it.
Done.
Any other TV you want to talk about?
No, just Deadwood and my new favorite word, cocksuckers.
The good old L Swearingen. And everyone else in that town, for that matter.
Well, I was pleasantly surprised after the fact doing a reading about all the characters in there that the majority of them are based on true life people.
Yeah.
Because I mean, you know, the Wild Bill Hickok and the likes of who were it was there as
Calamity
well?
Calamity
Jane.
Jane. Hey.
Calamity Jane, but the Sheriff Bullock, Seth Bullock, he was also a person at some point in time, and the Doctor himself, Valentine. We were strangely, his birthday is the 14th of February, so I was like, is this anything to do with Valentine's Day? But no, it's not.
No,
That's the holiday we celebrate.
not because of him, though.
Yes.
Really?
No.
Oh, well, I was like, man,
Almost had him.
I'm-
Sorry, Moritz. I ruined it.
Okay, well, before we commence with the proceedings today, I will remind our listeners that there is nothing wrong with their podcast app. This might be a shorter episode than normal, considering the fact that we are covering only 4 chapters instead of 6. I say that with an asterisk next to it because we do like a bit of a ramble, and who knows? Like it might still
3
be
hours
2+
later.
hours. Yes.
I am suspecting there might be a bit of rambling tonight.
That's a pretty safe bet.
Plus, there's no Formula One on tonight, so I've got nowhere to rush to.
Are you telling me you've been rushing the previous episodes?
Well, a little bit.
I'd hate to see you stall. Okay, well, on that note, let's head straight into everyone's favorite segment, callbacks. Did you guys enjoy the jingle?
Oh, yeah, finally. It's still not that screaming sounds out of hell, but it's
And I guess it's not like truly a jingle, it's just like a little piece of music, but it does the trick. I like it. I think
I
I'll
like
keep
it too. I like a little bit of a good little
Dulcimer.
fun new nuggets in our podcast.
Yeah. New little treasures for people to find. Okay, let's get into our callbacks. Now, I'm going to start this callback section with I was going to say uncharacteristic, but this is probably going to become a theme if it hasn't already. I'm going to do a complete 180 on one of my previous, one of my previous theories.
You're doing callbackception, you say.
Yes.
A callback within a callback. Let's go.
The whole who was Perrin dreaming about holding the sword aloft? I was happy to entertain the theory that it might have been Samael dreaming himself taller because it's a tall person and Belal is never described as tall. But I had definitely taken the bait and gone after a red herring or a false trail that I had picked up somewhere. Because I think what really threw me off, so just to be clear, I now think quite I'm now absolutely certain
Until next week.
until next week, exactly, that it was Belal. Because in the meeting, I went back and I read the description of the Forsaken that were having the argument in Tel Aranriad that Perrin stumbled upon early in this book. When Ravin and another male Forsaken are having an argument on one of those bridges, and Ishamael rocks up and he blows the whole place up when they all start arguing. And that description of the other man that was not Ravin was that he was shorter. But in reading about Ravin recently as well, I mean, Ravin is taller than Rand.
Yeah.
So technically, Rand is shorter than Ravin and still tall. So, I mean, it could very easily have been Belal in both Tel Aranriad and in this dream that Perrin had where someone was holding aloft Calandor. Plus, Belal is pretty much set up as the antagonist for this book, right? I'm starting to feel the closer we get to the end, and this could also just be because this is the sort of offline conversation I'm having with listeners and with you guys, that Belal is purposefully and very deliberately trying to lure Rand to the Heart of the Stone to take Calandor so that he can take it off him. Mm-hmm. And that the dreams of people holding the sword aloft are Belal somehow pushing that dream as far afield as he can. Plus the fact that Perrin has like dream skills, you know. I don't want to get too specific about what Perrin can do in the Wolf Dream because obviously I am not educated on what he can and can't do. But it's not impossible for Perrin to go into other people's dreams and like, you know, access dreams. It didn't have to be Samael that was in the same city as Perrin that had to affect his dreams. You know, Perrin has capabilities in dreams much further afield than just in the city around him. The fact that, you know, everyone in Ilion was having bad dreams. The other Forsaken seem to be pushing their dreams on people in the cities that they are in. All of that sort of led me down the path of thinking that it's Samael. But considering everything I've said before, I have done a complete 180 on that. And I now do think it was Belal. What do you guys think?
I think it's Belal.
Belal. Yeah.
After these chapters, it makes sense.
Yeah.
He's obsessed with the sword. He's just frothing at the bit. His mouth is like it looks like a dark hound, Jody, not a mastiff.
No. He's a giant mastiff. He's frothing like a mastiff. There's no evidence that it's a dark hound.
So one of our listeners, who is a friend of the show, Aisha Jean, wrote in again and not confirmed, but sort of, you know, backed up my new improved theory. And it's actually something that she had said before, that it is Belal pushing that dream out to all and sundry, specifically trying to get it to Rand so that Rand would come to Tia. And I mean, that's kind of a theme of this book as well, right? Like people dreaming about the Heart of the Stone and that being the impetus for them to physically go to the Heart of the Stone. Both Rand, the dreams that Moiraine hears about, you know, it's all about the Heart of the Stone, and Egwene and what she's experienced in Tel Aranriad, Sylvie being there. Like everyone is having dreams about the Heart of the Stone, and that's why they're going there.
There's a cool little Forsaken, a good example of why the Forsaken fail at everything so often is this whole scenario with Rand and the Heart of the Stone. Is they Belal is there and he wants Rand to get the sword so that he can kill him and take it. And then Lanfear is there because she wants Rand to take the sword and then rule alongside him. And Ishamael is there because he wants to just fucking kill Rand. He doesn't care, sword or no sword. So like there's three of them right there that we know of, confirmed.
Yeah.
And all of them are working against each other. So, no, it's your own fucking fault, guys.
I was reading about the War of Power and the Forsaken in general because I was just reading about some of Belal's backstory and stuff. And it turns out that during the War of Power, there were 30 or more Forsaken. And they had turned their armies on each other and whittled themselves down until there were about 13 of them left. And they were the 13 strongest that survived and were at Shai'al Ghul when Lews Therin came and sealed up the bore. But of that 30, 29 of them were granted access to the true power.
Oh wow!
Oh, wow.
Who was the poor sucker that got denied?
Some idiot.
The oh no, I thought for some reason there was 11 Forsaken.
It's 13.
Not 13.
They mention 11 in this book in this sequence of chapters.
Yeah.
They do. And that is
Two of them are
because
dead.
2 of them are dead, exactly.
Yeah.
Egwene has a dream about 6 men and 5 women. or
5.
something
Yeah,
like
that's
that.
exactly. I was like, okay,
Walking
that
around,
makes
yeah.
sense.
I did the same thing, Bill, and then I remembered, of course, Agenor and Balthamel are dead, and they haven't
But don't
been
they get
resurrected yet.
reincarnated or something?
Hasn't
else now?
happened yet, though.
Not yet.
No, the Dark One's going to let them suffer a little bit before he does it.
I realized today that during my reading of this is that it's almost just, I should just give up. I know character names. I know
Just
some
give
big
up
events.
now.
I just not give up reading, just give up saying that I know much about the books because it's
Or
really,
remember much specifically.
yeah,
right?
remember
Like,
much.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just fantastic. Still, I just love it.
Yeah. Okay, speaking of Asha Jean, she also wrote in with a couple other things. She has a theory about what Moraine's little secret mission or last-minute mission in Elayne was. She thinks that she went to go retrieve a balefire terangrial, which apparently is mentioned in some later chapter. Now, there's no mention of a terangrial when Moiraine kills those 9 Darkhounds, which we will also get to. She did only kill 9 of them because Perrin did kill one of them.
Well, there we
But
are. We're
I'm
at it
pretty
already.
sure that from Perrin's point of view, if Moiraine was using a terangrial, he would have described that to the reader, right? Like she would have pulled out a fluted rod or something, and, light would have emitted from that. But it was the air between her hands specifically that turned to fire and then shot towards them. So I don't know. Maybe we see her pull out a terangrial later. But it was an interesting theory, like for her to go fetch some weapon from somewhere.
It sounds like something. But there is in this stretch of chapters, she does say like she's not the same person she was when she met them. And
She specifically says she has learnt things.
Yes, exactly. She
Which
learned how
to
to
me
steal
sounds like a
terangrial
weave.
from
or where a terangrial is. But what also happens is in the list of terangrial that the 13 Black Sisters steal, there is a terangrial that it is for balefire. And then another fun one from Aisha Jean is just that not only is Faile Tenobia's cousin, she is the next in line for the throne of Saldea. And by the end of the series, Faile is the queen of Saldea.
Of course she is.
Yeah, so, Perrin is he's mixing in high circles. Yeah. And the name Zareen certainly is starting to make a lot more sense now.
These boys do have their ways with the high ladies, it seems.
They sure do. High and low. Matt's coming at the tavern maid.
Yeah.
Then again, I guess Tion.
Yeah.
He does all right.
Tavern servers, daughter of the 9 moons. It's all the same to him.
And then we had 2 other friends of the show write in with the same theory. And that is our good friend Kerry Katz and Richard Jackson, who has written in before with some input. And that is the potential reason or the possible reason why Morghese shoots Mat a glance when he introduces himself as, Thom Grinwell from Comfrey, north of Balon.
Yeah.
And they both said to me, like within a day of each other, that Morghese identifies Rand's Two Rivers accent when she meets him. Not his Andorran accent or his, West Andorran accent, his Two Rivers accent. And when Mat introduces himself as coming from north of Balon, that's when she glances at him, because she probably recognizes his accent as well. I mean, it stands to reason if she recognized Rand's, she would recognize his. So she immediately suspects him of lying, but she doesn't say anything to Gabriel. She doesn't bring it up.
So she's fighting, yeah? She's fighting the
Well, she doesn't
compulsion.
have her wits about herself at the moment.
No, but that is a cool reason for that specific reaction, because we know that she's sort of fighting the compulsion, and we know that Gabriel is supposed to come from that same area, and he doesn't say anything. We know that Thom is a name that she might recognize, but it's also quite a common name. So neither of those reasons quite justified the look that she gave him. But this accent recognition not matching up with where he says he comes from, that fits quite nicely. So I quite like that one.
Yeah, me too. Thanks, guys.
Yeah. So
we got a lot of friends writing into the show. It's awesome.
We do. It's what we want. It's what I like. And I mean, look, here is a prime example of it adding value, right? Like this now clears up some stuff for me. It's just, it smooths some of the edges in my own understanding of the story, which is great. Then I've got some quickfire callbacks. The segment within a segment. Hakuna Matata is in fact Swahili.
Of course it is. This one time.
So I apologize to Hollywood and its liberal use of the word Swahili. Villy.
What I do?
Your turn. Did you look up what happens with the female Trollocs?
Yeah, absolutely. I delved into that. I found out, much like the dwarves, you just can't distinguish. No, I didn't do anything about it.
That's obvious because this is not true.
Yes, and I'm glad that Villy did not delve into female Trollocs. I wouldn't suggest it.
I'm sure they are glad too.
Hey, come on, don't be that mean.
The female Trollocs are cloistered up in their tribal villages. They never leave. They are basically just there for procreation, and that's it. So all the Trollocs, yeah, go figure. The Trollocs aren't nice to their women. Weird.
I thought Trollocs were made. Do they
They were made, but now they procreate. I mean, we said last week as well, Madrol are also the children of Trollocs.
That's a very unpleasant thought.
It's very unsettling, isn't it? And if you think about how, like, the Madrol obviously come from different Trolloc, I want to use this word hesitantly, families. They have names. They have unique individual names in Trolloc, but they all look exactly the same. That's also just icky.
Yeah. What does a Trolloc mother call the Madrol son? Birth pains.
Trouble.
Stan.
Let's not dwell on that one. Rand's memory of climbing the sand hills is in fact exactly in the same spot that Mat has it when Rand was climbing the wall into the gardens of the Camelin Palace. Jody, you were speculating about how long it might have been since Mat has been to Camelin. When he goes back and he says, "Oh, I remember this and this, but I can't remember any of that."
Yeah.
It is almost exactly a year.
Oh, wow.
It's a year and a day, according to the calendar and timeline that I found online. So take that from whence it comes. But I mean, that's pretty cool. Like,
well, that is much like this show, going for almost exactly a year now.
Yes.
Have we?
We are all like Mat.
Awesome.
I'm going to go throw some dice now.
Choose.
No, there's a German drinking game that we drink here called Shock. It's
sounds pleasant.
It is very, very, very good. It was also played in leather cups and with a bunch of dice, and the sole purpose of it is to get inebriated. So
when you say good, do you mean pleasurable or effective?
It's actually both a pleasurable game because it's, again, very much just pure luck. And for some reason, every time we've played it, I've done outstandingly well at both the outcomes of it, both winning the game and having a hangover. So, good game.
Well done, Villy. You'll have to teach us.
I sure will. That next big get-together when boundaries are broken and planes can fly and New South Wales clears up their disease.
Villy, you were asking how many people were at the Dark Friend Social? It was about 100.
Yep.
So I think you actually said that, but you were unsure, and I went and checked, and it was about 100. Then we asked who sent the Grey Men in easing the Badger. The answer to that is I still have no idea, but here's something interesting.
And now for something completely different.
Same but different. That's the inn in which Bail Domon met with the Terrans or the Ilian people that were trying to lure him into a trap when they gave him the letter to deliver to Tyr. It was
That's
the same inn. Yes.
Because we've spoken about this. I mean, that name was familiar. I just thought maybe it's just a very common inn name. There's just...
Or we
using the
retained it from
badges.
high school, or like whenever we read last time, But yeah, it's we read about it in book 2.
Yeah, we mentioned it on the podcast, I'm sure.
Surely. There's no way of checking.
No, impossible.
Speaking of easing the badger, Mistress Nynaeve, we were thinking about, we were talking about maybe she doesn't know that Moiraine is Aes Sedai because she doesn't call her Moiraine, she calls her Mistress Mari or something
Elise?
like that. But she doesn't seem at all surprised by Moiraine lobbing a fireball at a grey man in her common room. So I just had the passing thought that I jotted down. It's probably not even worth a callback, but that she probably knows that Moiraine is Aes Sedai and is either keeping her identity secret by only ever referring to her as Mistress Mari, or she just never ever knew her name. But I think she's she's certainly an Aes Sedai. Or a very tricksy, a combination of a glee man and an illuminator.
As a business owner, a inn owner in that city, she's probably seen some crazy shit go down. So fireballs, grey men, just another day.
Yeah, same. Yeah, Billy, unfazed. Just whatever the fallout is, lob it in the canal. We quickly mentioned the Seanchan creatures that attack each other. It was, in fact, the Thom and the Corlm. The Thom you guys are obviously 100% across what those animals are and what they look like.
They've
right?
got beaks and 7 eyes, snouts.
3
The
necks.
Thom are like the big cat-like ones that are scaled, and they're like super fast and they're good rangers and scouts, but you can never put them in an army with Corlm, which are the big ostrich-looking things, because these cats attack the birds instantly when they see them.
That makes complete sense.
Yep.
And then the last one that I alluded to before, did Perrin kill a Darkhound? And the answer is yes. The first arrow he fires at it, the Darkhound only snarls. The second arrow, it stumbles, and Perrin actually has a realization. He says, they can die, but it gets up and it comes at him again. The third arrow does land, and it falls and dies. And Perrin looses a fourth arrow, Billy, during which Moiraine channels, like as the arrow leaves the bow. But he confirms that one is dead. And Moiraine obviously just kills the rest in one fell swoop. She could have told him that she was going to do that. He just wasted 4 good arrows there.
Moiraine is not upfront with the information. She just enlightens you afterwards. Like, I knew all this and I knew this. Like, there's no sort of, don't worry, I got this. Hang back, make a fire, get some tea on the bottom, and quickly make white lightning.
Okay, that's the end of callbacks.
Yay!
That wasn't a long one at all. This is a cruisy one.
Yeah. We even participated, Billy.
Look at you go.
You're riding over.
Okay, so previously on Blood and Ashes, Perrin and co were attacked in the common room of their inn on their first night in Ilion. They leave immediately after riding for Tyr, when they are attacked again by Samael's Darkhounds, which we just spoke about, and Moiraine dispatches those quite easily with balefire. And we then joined Mat and Thom as they were making their way to Caemlyn with Elayne's letter, which Mat delivers only to learn about a plot by Lord Gabriel, aka Ravine, to have the girls killed. So he and Thom race off to Tyr to warn or save the girls. And that brings us to today's episode, starting with chapter 48, called Following the Craft. Take it away, Jody.
Thank you very much. We join Egwene, Elayne, and Nynaeve as they arrive in Tyr. They're on the Daughter, I think the ship's name is. It's been a rough journey for these girls. They have
grim, hey. The description is so bleak.
It's been mostly sleeping and then using the tongue grill, and when they're awake, it's mostly vomiting. But that's basically their journey so far. So they're undercover as well. Like when they left Tar Valon, they were pretending to be Aes Sedai, but now they've given that up because you don't want to head into Tyr claiming to be an Aes Sedai. So that's undercover. And also, 3 Aes Sedai continually vomiting, that kind of, casts a poor light on the Aes Sedai order in general. So they wouldn't be. So, they're using the names Jocelyn, Mariam, and Carilla. I'm pronouncing them that way. Deal with it.
Cool.
And so, yeah, they've still been going into the world of dreams every night, but not much has been shown to her there. It's just the heart of the stone again, and no more new information. But her plain old dreams have been far more enlightening, to us at least. To her, she's still confused as fuck. But anyway, so there's a couple of things that stick out that she mentions in this chapter that she's been dreaming about. Obviously, the Sean-chan, but she doesn't want to talk about or think about those. So we'll move it along. There's also a dream of a white cloak putting Master Luhan in a trap as bait. This, of course, later on is to get Perrin to go back to the Two Rivers so that they can murder him. So they just fucking hate this guy. But I was thinking, you mentioned that as well, Moritz, in a previous episode about how they just hate Perrin so much, like giving him a hard time. But literally every time he bumps into any of them, he murders one or several of them. So he has it coming.
Defense, come on, self-defense. They came charging at him with swords in Reborn.
Hold up.
Whoa.
I'm not gonna. I'll put my neck out in this statement, but I'm pretty certain when the white cloaks rock up with an attitude somewhere, some of them gets murdered all the time. Like they're not loved by anyone. It's like they should be used to their hordes being culled because of their sheer shitty attitudes.
Yes.
Yeah. I was going to say holiness, but there's nothing holy about them at all.
No.
Well, they hold themselves quite holy.
Another reason to just hate him. So anyway.
Another reason to put holes in them.
Indeed. And Perrin does regularly, which is why they hate him. Another dream that she has is a falcon on Perrin's shoulder. We're well aware of that already. And also him having to choose between his axe or his hammer. And like, dude, already in book 3, and it takes him until what, Moritz? Book 11? You told us last time? Just get on with it.
To throw the axe away.
Yeah, to make that choice. Here it is, talking about it in book 3.
You know, our beefy boy is a thinky boy. He's considering that axe versus hammer for a long time.
One of your chapters also ends with a little thinky session. Mat, she dreams about Mat dicing with the Dark One and him screaming, "I'm coming," and she feels it's about them. So she is on it. He is coming. Rand sneaking through the darkness. He has that confusing number, being surrounded by 6 men and 5 women. Because 2 of them are dead. One of them she knows is Baalzamon because he has fire for eyes. And all of their motives seem to be different. Like some of them apparently don't even know Rand is there. They're completely ignoring him on their own little missions. Some of it, and she can actually feel the hatred that Baalzamon has for Rand. Like just want to kill him. And just the end. No other plan except kill this son of a bitch. She also dreams of Rand in a dusty chamber and the dragons, these creatures that she can't identify, settling onto his skin. Foreshadowing the next book. Christina's already on it. I asked her what chapter she's on. She's already like chapter 50-something of the next book. A little bit ahead of us. And then Rand confronting a horde of Sean-chan. I know he does this a lot in the future, but I don't know specifically to which horde of Sean-chan it's referring to.
Nah.
Anyway. Yeah, so they get off the boat. They start, unloading the horses and head into the city. There's a description of the city and the people. And for the first time, I'm getting a distinctly Asian vibe for the city. Yeah. No, I didn't pick that up in the first couple of reads. I was just, when I remember, I know why, because in the beginning, I was also just getting through it. The first time I read it, I was super young, get to the action. The second time I read it, I was trying to finish the books as well so that I could get a Memory of Light finished. Yeah. So I just was doing a quick recap. I must have missed so much. So this time I'm like, they're wearing conical straw hats. There's bamboo everywhere. The shape of the houses, like it's so obvious. But anyway, like Nynaeve and Lan right from the beginning. Missed that too, the first read through, but clearly a thing. But anyway, regardless of all the descriptions of the city and whatnot, it's the stone of Tear that really dominates the city. It is just... The description as well is just massive. Like it's just growing out of the ground. And it is far. I always had it in my mind as like the Stone of Tear is on top of a mountain, but it actually is the mountain from the ground up. Yeah. There's also a little description there. Elayne remembers some of her lessons from the White Tower, where they spoke about how the the Stone of Tear was created with the one power, and using flows of earth to put it all together, and flows of air to bring the rock and the earth from all different places in the world. So it's not just drawn out of that specific spot in the ground.
No.
So it's a massive, massive feat, and there's no seams and there's no mortar, so it's all just like one solid piece.
Yeah.
Impressive. So Egwene and Nynaeve are still having their little power struggle. I don't know if this is relevant later on, but I will mention it. So yeah, Egwene doesn't want to listen to Nynaeve because she feels she's a big girl now. Nynaeve still looks at her as a child and just expects everyone to follow her. She's not used to having to explain herself.
Mm-hmm.
But there's that little thing is going on in the background, and Elayne is just stuck in the middle, and she's had enough. She's pissed off with them both. And even though a lot of what Nynaeve says is true and makes sense, Egwene just won't agree with her. Or
it's so frustrating.
Yes, but it's a small part of this chapter at least.
Yeah.
So anyway, they head into the city, and Nynaeve insists that they avoid the inns for obvious reasons. Again, she's right. Best not to make a statement. They'll get recognized, but she won't tell them what the alternative is. That's her little secret. They will just follow her into the city, and when she says it, then they'll get the answer. And Egwene is too proud to ask, so they just walk around in silence again.
Sigh.
Yeah. So quite soon actually, Nynaeve spots some herbs hanging in the windows of one of these houses. And she heads in there, and we find a wisdom. So that's what she's been looking for. She's planning on staying with the wisdom. So they knock on the door, and under the pretense that they need some medicine for an upset stomach, although they do actually have
pretense. They need
it. They actually do have pretty upset stomachs. But that's not the primary goal to get into that house. But anyway, there's introductions. We meet old Mother Gwena. Vili, how would you pronounce this?
No. Don't pull me into this.
Oh,
Mother
please.
G.
Mother G.
I'll pronounce that with a J, like Spanish. Joanna.
Joanna. Mother Joanna. You've completely thrown me off now.
Give me hope, Joanna.
Oh, yes.
Joanna.
Now I found my spot again. Joanna. Mother G. We'll call her Mother G. So, so Nynaeve and Mother G get into this whole tit for tat thing, like, how much do you know about herbs and spices? And off they go. And they're like, what about this and what about that? So like they're kind of testing each other, and they're a match for each other at least. But the other two are just sitting there watching them, and must have, I get it, at least an hour that these two women are going on. Eventually they're like, all right, fine, fuck it, shut up. And Egwene interrupts them. So Nynaeve asks them as well at that point asks Mother G if she has a spare room that they could rent, and Mother G, she agrees to let them stay for free, but she's no fool. She figures that they're on the run. She wants to know a little bit more about their story. So Nynaeve gives her a very Aes Sedai edited recap, director's version of a director's cut of what has actually been happening here. So she tells them kind of the truth, and Egwene actually notices she's trying to stick to the oaths, even though she's not an Aes Sedai, hasn't taken, hasn't held the oath rod or anything, but she's already trying to pretend to be Aes Sedai. And I think that's pretty cool. Like she has this, even though she's not a fan of Aes Sedai, she really wants to be one, and she's already taking it, like all their principles on board already. But anyway, so
doesn't she say during Tower Time that like around about that Grey Man attack, she says to Egwene, like after they come out of Swan's study or something, she says to her outright, I'm going to try and live by the 3 oaths.
I don't recall.
Asking the wrong guy. God damn it, Jody. Now you're going to make me look it up for next time.
Okay. Callbacks. All right.
Move along.
Moving along. Anyway, so basically the abridged version is that they are looking for 13 dangerous women. They are dark friends, and they have done murder, and they have stolen some old things from us, and we want them back. That's the short end.
True.
Not incorrect, not a lie, not the whole truth, but anyway, it's enough for Mother G. So she says, well, if you're looking to catch some thieves, I just happen to know a thief catcher by the name of Julian Sandar. And this is the first mention we have of this dude, who becomes a staple further onto the books. So Mother G heads out of the house to go and get him. And Egwene takes this opportunity to have a little dig at Nynaeve and her pretending to be an Aes Sedai, and she says like, so you are learning how to be an Aes Sedai, Mariam. You manipulate people as well as Moiraine. And Nynaeve goes absolutely white, and Elayne walks over and slaps Egwene through the face. She's also just had enough of this shit now. And she's going, you go too far. Like you could say anything, but you dare not compare Nynaeve to Moiraine. Like, whoa, that's a step too far.
But I mean, even before that, while they were having their herb off knowledge drop bomb session,
herb off, I love it.
She's like, okay, what would you do? Elayne pipes up. What would you do if two people are incessantly bickering? And she's like, oh yeah, I've got a plan for that. Like 2 silver marks, and for men 2 per person because they are heavier to handle. And I'll basically just drown them until
it amounts to threatening them with drowning
until they agree to stop fighting. Yes, so there's that little dig as well that I glossed over. But anyway, that's how the chapter ends, with them waiting for Mother G to return and staring out the window, all sullen and upset with each other.
I like that Egwene says Elayne has a strong arm. Like she gave her a proper slap.
Her jaw's hurting.
On the way into town, they also mention that the docks look just like a picture hanging in Swan's study.
Oh, yeah.
So we finally see like Swan's. This is where Swan is from, the mall, like the downtrodden, dirty bits of Tyr down on the docks that smell like fish all the time. And it's cool to think that the sitting Amerlin seat is from this city where they hate channeling an Aes Sedai, and she clawed her way out of like its bowels and is now arguably the most powerful woman in the world.
Yes.
Yeah. I do have questions about this chapter.
Those
powerful Aes Sedai that raised that stone of Tyr all that time back, could they not have fucking paved the roads?
It was like, literally thousands of years before.
But the roads was there. Surely there must have been people. It's just like, there's a blank spot on the map. Let's just put a big monument the size of a mountain over there, but let's not put any infrastructure around it. Let the people walk in mud for the rest of their life as their penance.
It's only down there by the docks that it's muddy. As you get into the city, the roads are paved.
But yes. They've got a very sharp way of dealing with it. Their little
clogs.
Yeah, the little wooden clogs.
Little platform shoes.
Now that is Japanese, isn't it?
Yeah. But I'm wondering if this is pedantic. Moritz, you're going to love it. Now, they got the little clogs with little pieces of wood that come out the bottom to raise them up. Now, I've been thinking about this for several days. They can't have the little pieces, the wood that comes down at like perpendicular to the foot. They got to have them parallel, wouldn't you think? Because if you have them like perpendicular when you're walking, you're going to trip on shit. You're going to have 2 that run parallel with your feet to allow for flow between.
Well, the traditional Japanese ones are perpendicular.
Yeah,
I know, but they're not walking through mud.
Yes, they wore them because they walk through mud.
Oh, no, never mind.
He said that with a lot of confidence, Jody. I don't know.
I was.
Are you going to call his bluff?
Convinced.
My authority is in my voice.
Also, Jody, if you have them running parallel with your foot, the front end of that little thing is still a trip hazard.
No, it's not.
Okay, but look, in all seriousness, wooden shoes with blocks underneath in itself is just a trip hazard. So,
yeah, you're going to trip regardless.
And
I'm just trying to minimize
tripping
in my designs. That's all.
Hey, you've triggered the pedant in me now, so let's let's get into it. No,
I'll post some design pictures on Twitter or something.
But just on the mud, like I don't remember that either. Like it's cool now. Like imagining, like Matt's walking through the mud. Get to the action, Matt. Is probably my attitude from when I was in high school. But it's cool now to think about like just how gross and messed up this part of the city is. The only other part of the story I remember being like super muddy is in Saladar, like after the snows melt and stuff as well. When the rebel Aes Sedai have their camp, they're also always talking about the mud and they have to put down boards and stuff for them to walk on. And Vili, you watching Deadwood recently would have some
memory of mud.
like just muddy, gross streets. It just seems like you don't want anything to do with it.
I love it when they punch people's lighthouse in the mud and they lie in the dirt and muck and get beaten to a pulp.
Get their eyeballs ripped out.
Oh, yes, there was that as well.
I also, on previous reads, never, ever, ever thought that the conical straw hats were like Raidens, right?
Yeah.
Like that typical Southeast Asian rice paddy
Yeah.
working sun hats, you know. And now it's like, yes, a flat conical straw hat is obviously that.
It's, it's pretty well described. It clearly can't be anything else.
Multiple times.
Yeah.
I think I'm gonna try and bail myself out a little bit here. I'm gonna throw myself a bone because Julian Sandar often wears a Tarrabona hat, which is also conical, but is quite clearly, and I've looked this up, is obviously a fez. It's something that resembles a fez.
Hmm.
But here in the beginning, when he's in Tyr, he wears the flat conical straw hat. So a lot of cone-shaped hats going around, and the one that he wears for the vast majority of the time that you know Julian is the one that looks like a fez. So that kind of, blurred together for me. So when I read this book specifically, so the introduction of these hats, as important as they are in my reading history, I would have been like 16 years old. And I would have just glossed over that detail.
Who gives a shit?
Straight away. I don't care what hats they're wearing.
He's literally
who they're
walking
killing.
around on these little raised platform Japanese shoes with a conical hat with a bamboo staff. Like, how more obvious could you make it?
Yes, totally. What else? I had one little note here about Egwene following Nynaeve, despite being like a sulky teen. She doesn't know where she's going, but she does follow Nynaeve anyway. So, I mean, like you were hinting at, Joe, there is a power dynamic that is in effect. Nynaeve is the de facto leader. She is the one that is making the decisions. We've said this before, and I think we said in the last episode. She's the one making decisions. She's coming up with the plans. She's the one that they turn to for guidance and that sort of thing. So it does make it frustrating that Egwene is having this reaction to it. Not just listening to Nynaeve and wanting to sort of strike out on her own and sort of, be her own master of her destiny, but it's exacerbated by the fact that Nynaeve doesn't share anything with them. Like Nynaeve is being exactly like Moiraine.
Words out of my mouth.
I've had a little bit of thinking into that, and just going back to the age differences between the two.
6 years we learn. Was it 7 years?
7 years. But I mean, when you are 18 and when you are 26 or 25, especially in that world where by that time you've already birthed a litter and living on your farm, I assume that she's just being a rebellious teenager. And Nynaeve is not even throwing her the bone of information, because she's just being rebellious. The minute she left the Two Rivers, she took her hair out of a braid, started wearing it loose with pretty little ribbons. It's a lot in her character is that of rebellion. And I mean, after all, she becomes the leader of the rebellion. And so it plays into her character being this.
Absolutely. It's consistent.
Full rebel, yeah.
The groundwork is laid before she leaves Eamon's Field.
Yeah.
She's the one that's like on the horse and prepared to go, yes, I know what's going on. I'm running away, I'm going to go I'm going to rebel against what everyone thinks I'm supposed to be doing with my life. I'm going to go do my own thing.
She's also a born leader, and that clashes with Nynaeve, who's also a leader. So there's these two leaders, and one of them is a young rebellious teenager. Issues will ensue.
Yeah.
But then a princess gives her
with a
PK
princess
in the
between.
face.
Jeez.
And like, I ain't taking this anymore. We might not be in my kingdom right now, but it's time for you to pull your shit together.
But it is actually pretty cool, and I've not given this much thought, I'm just thinking out loud now, how Elayne, being the daughter heir, is perfectly fine with letting Nynaeve take the lead. Elayne is the sort of level-headed one, when she, by, any stretch of the imagination, has the most like experience with command and probably the most like legal right to be the leader. But she understands that Nynaeve is the one coming up with the plans, and she even defers to Egwene a bit. She's not trying to push Egwene around. She's very much just going along for the ride, which is subverting the stereotype. This
That's
blonde, beautiful princess is thrown into the mix, and she's just cool with like, okay, no, you guys make the plans. I'll go along with it.
Tis
I
true.
like Elayne a lot, and I'm liking her more and more now in this reread as well.
No, me too.
They mention in this chapter that all of Tyr is having bad dreams, and everyone's coming to Mother G for cures for bad dreams. So just more fuel on that fire.
Typical. They left Ilian and walked straight back into Somber World.
Yeah.
It's, well, I mean, now that you've said it, Raiden hats, they might as well be in Mortal Kombat hell.
They're in Outworld. What's it called?
Outworld.
Anything else, Willie?
Oh, no, I think that was pretty well summed up. The mud is irritating.
Yes.
Elayne is irritating. Not Elayne, Egwene. And they
And Nynaeve.
They have a herb-off. The herb-off was a little bit interesting.
I love that term, a herb-off.
All right, then. So let's move along to chapter 49 called A Storm in Tyr. Man, this was quite a chapter. This could have been 2 chapters.
Yeah. On my reread, I was like, when is this fucking chapter going to end?
I was reading through that thinking like, damn, did I like get so sucked in that I missed the that I'm in the new chapter? Should I be concentrating a bit more?
So anyway, we are still with the girls as they're sitting in silence when Mother G returns with Julian, the thief catcher. What do they call him? A thief catcher or a thief taker?
Catcher.
Thief
Yeah,
taker.
Thief catcher, yeah. Huron called himself a thief taker or something like that. Like there's a slight difference in the nomenclature in the different countries. When Julian rocks up, I always pictured him as much older. But this description is that he's middle-aged, he's in his middle years, and to my teenage self, that would seem old. So I just made him like an older guy in my
They also
in my
say
mind.
it's like carved, like wood, like a wood
Carved out of wood.
It's
or
obviously a
something,
little bit weathered, like
Yes.
most fisher people living on the fingers of the dragon would
But
probably
he's dark-haired, and now I am picturing a Japanese man.
Yeah, or a person of Asian descent.
They don't mention the eyes, though. Or did I just not read that again? So I don't know if
No, I
they
don't think so.
The only mention of eyes was dark eyes.
Yeah. And I mean, Robert Jordan does have a propensity for mixing and matching, like fashion with genetic traits and that sort of stuff. So he probably did. Robert Jordan probably didn't imagine him as Japanese, but now with all his garb and his bamboo stick, I imagine him as Japanese. I was also going to say that now that I'm middle-aged, Julian doesn't seem that old anymore.
I wonder why. Surprise.
So Julian shows up with Mother G, and he's wearing his Raiden hat and carrying his bamboo staff. And he says that Mother G had briefed him on their problem, and he will help while he can. But he suspects that the High Lords are going to have work for him soon.
Dum dum dum.
Mm-hmm. Mother G chides him for saying that as a way of bargaining, because she thinks he's sort of like, I'm going to be busy soon, so you better make it worth my while. But he just says he's seen men on the roofs out of the corner of his eye. And he's confident that there are many thieves working together, and there's about to be a spate of robberies. As I read this, I was like, oh, a bunch of people on the roofs that you see from the corner of your eye and you can't quite catch. The Aiel are in town, right? I mean, got to be. Mother G says that she does trust him. He's probably the most honest man in the mall. Building up our readers' trust in him as well, right? Because we know now, what's coming later. But you'll see there's a couple things along here where she is building up the readers' trust in him. She keeps saying she's become trusted because she's giving, the girls shelter, and her word carries some weight with us now because she's also matched Nynaeve in her sort of wisdom and knowledge. And now she's saying, no, you can trust Julian. He's fine. Except if he's trying to like tell you how pretty you are, or like he's a compulsive flirt. But they then start talking price, and while they do, Elayne interjects and mentions that she knows another thief taker, Huron, from Shinar, and that he carries a sword and a sword breaker. And why does Julian not? Because Julian also has a sword breaker along with his bamboo
Except
staff.
he's got a double notched sword breaker.
Yeah, it's slightly different. Julian just smiles and he says he does okay with his staff. Don't worry about that. But he sort of explains that it's a class thing. There are laws that prohibit him from carrying a sword, and we know that he kicks ass with that staff of his. That bamboo staff makes contact with a lot of heads.
He's much like Mat, eh? A real ladies' man, fights with a staff.
Mm-hmm. Must be ladies' men and something with staves. There must be a correlation there. After they've sort of... after Julian explains, what his pricing structure looks like, Nynaeve just offers him 13 silver marks. She takes out 13 silver marks and she says, one for each of the women that I want you to find, and another one once you've found them. So she's basically offering him a lot more money than what he would suggest. And he even tries to argue. He tries to push back.
Well, she's buying his loyalty as well.
Yeah, and she's saying, like, look, all you need to do is find them. Don't approach them. Don't try and take anything off them. Just find them, and this is how much money you will get. So she's trying to make it as an attractive a deal for him as possible and make it impossible for him to step outside of what he's trying to do because she knows how dangerous it is. So Julian agrees, and he eventually leaves. Mother G hints, as she's done repeatedly until now, that Julian might be a flirt and a charmer, but they can definitely trust him. So she brings it up again. And after he's left, Nynaeve and Mother G sort of settle down to talk herbs. Elayne works on some embroidery, and Egwene tries to do some reading, but she can't even read The Adventures of Jane Fastrider, or the other book that she mentions.
Yeah, or the other one.
The other one that's not important. Or I don't know, maybe it is. Maybe I should be writing down the name of this book and seeing how it ties in later. Robert Jordan is pretty good at laying little breadcrumbs down for way later in the story. But she can't take her thoughts off the task at hand. She can't concentrate on a book. And eventually, when everyone is a bit more tired, they prepare to go to bed, and they all go to Egwene's room, or the room that they are staying in, and they get ready for Egwene to go into Faile and Loial again. And she asks Nynaeve and Elayne to wake her after an hour of being asleep. This is what, after that first night, they'd agreed there must always be someone ready to wake her up after a set amount of time. It's hard for her to fall asleep, but eventually she does. And in Faile and Loial, she uses her sort of newly gained abilities, not new abilities, but she sort of figured a couple things out, how to do basic navigation and that sort of thing. And she gets herself to travel straight to the heart of the stone. And as she rocks up there, the sword is there, obviously, and the red columns and everything. But sitting cross-legged around the sword, staring at it, are all 13 of the Black Ajah sisters. And as Egwene sort of realizes who they are, Liandrin turns her head straight at Egwene and smiles at her. And Egwene gasps and sits up in bed, like she wakes herself up completely. And Nynaeve and Elayne are like, oh my God, what happened? Something happened, didn't it? What happened? This is the first time you've ever done that. You were barely asleep. They say that like you've just gone to sleep and you're back already, which is not something that's happened before. And Egwene says to them, they are here. They know that we are coming, and they probably know that we are here in Tyr as well.
Mm-hmm.
And
not looking good.
No. And that's how the chapter ends.
Oh, dude, I want to just call...
That is the first half of this chapter.
I know. Let's
discuss it.
Yes, our first half, 1.1.
Yes.
Do you get the idea that there's some history there between Julian and Mother G? Just because she's called Mother G doesn't mean she's an old lady. She's probably the same age as you.
She is an old lady. She's got 3 kids that have already left home, and her husband's dead 20 years. Did you read the chapter,
but you
Jody?
just mentioned... listen, Vinny, you just the last chapter mentioned like at this stage, by the time they're 18, they already have a litter of kids. So, I mean, she could have had her 3 children when she was 16.
I really do think that the thing that gave it away is that her husband is 20 years dead.
Yeah.
He drowned in the fingers working the nets or something.
Short answer, Joe, I didn't think that they had a personal history, but I did think that, or she makes it quite obvious that Julian has a history. Like he's got... Yeah.
There's something that they mentioned because he keeps glaring at her. Like she says stuff about him, like if you got a pretty smile, and he keeps looking at her, and then she says, "You can believe him unless he says that he loves you," and he gives her a dirty look. And there's all these little things throughout the conversation there that I'm thinking, what's going on here between
3 daughters?
These two?
Maybe there's been a couple tavern maids that have come looking for morning after herbs, thanks to Julian.
No,
Yeah,
I think it's
perhaps.
probably tied in with her daughters, who had.
Ooh, maybe,
That's it.
maybe.
And he probably met her daughters. Just me making the story now for you. When he
Okay, go
came
for it.
for
Love
help,
it.
she's dealing the herbs. He's a thief taker, and thief takers do find themselves injured from time to time. So he came there, got some help, spotted the daughter, broke her heart. But, once her wisdom has healed someone, they have affinity for them. They care for them. We've seen this with Nynaeve. So,
Mm-hmm.
It's like a whole little side story, really. Should write a little prequel
yeah,
book like New Spring, and just all about Julian's adventures.
he's
Julian's
womanizing.
sexual adventures through Tyr. A comprehensive guide by Villy.
And
Julian's
Mother
conquests.
G's birth control.
Okay. Anything else about that part? Not really an awful lot. I mean, like I said throughout that description, very much building up Julian's trustworthiness.
Mm. It's what I did note is how stingy. Oh well, we're not stingy. I mean, Nynaeve is being cautious with their gold, sack of gold that they have for this journey, but she picks out all the lesser weighing silver marks first,
Mm-hmm.
and it's just
But
like,
she also mentions there, like, because the gold is running low. Like, we're already running out of gold.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So let's get to the second half of this chapter, the action bit. We join Mat and Thom as they're busy playing stones on board a ship, which is on its way to Tyr, a ship that they boarded somewhere. I don't know, Arangil probably.
On a river.
Arangil is that sort of like that river town that allows you to get onto the Camelin Road.
Yes.
Look at that. My memory does work. Anyway, inconsequential. They're on the boat. And Mat's busy playing stones with Thom, but he's getting frustrated because even though we know Mat is a brilliant tactician, or we don't know how like permanently this manifests, if he just has moments of brilliance, or what the true dimensions of his abilities are. But he's playing stones with Thom, and he is coming off second best. And he asks Thom, like, don't you rather want a dice? And Tom's like, no. We'll
you?
stick to
No.
stones. Thank you. Thank you very much. Matt asks Thom, do you ever lose? And he says that Morghese used to beat me about half the time. And Thom is set up as this like expert player of, Dice Mar. And he even mentions that, brilliant military tacticians and people that are good at the game of houses are good at stones traditionally. And Morghese used to beat him half the time, which is another feather in Morghese's cap, right? Like it just elevates her profile a little bit as well and makes her seem really good. And also it gives a bit more credence to, or a bit more weight to the fact that I remember when she's captured by the White Cloaks and she is Pedron Niall's prisoner, Pedron Niall and her regularly play stones. And Pedron is impressed by her ability to also beat him or like put up a fight or something, because Pedron Niall himself is one of the great captains and would therefore probably also be quite good at stones. But that was their little habit, and that's how you leave those scenes with like a somewhat of a fondness for Pedron Niall, because he's not treating her terribly and he's playing stones against her all the time, despite the fact that, as we learned in the prologue of this book, he has designs on being the one to defeat the Dark One and unite all the nations under the White Cloaks and stuff. Anyway, I digress. Morghese is good at stones. Captain barges in and he sort of says, you've been asking for speed all this time, because Mat just immediately goes, how far until we get there? We need to go faster. And he goes, well, we're here. The boat had made a weird movement before, and it's obviously them tying up to the docks. And he says, where's the rest of my money? Because we're here now. And Mat gives him his money and says, okay, well, now that I have all my money, what is all this haste about? You've nearly killing the crew here. Why do you need to get you so fast? And Mat says, it's all for a wager. And he goes, a wager? There must be a kingdom riding on it, because I imagine he paid the captain a lot of money to like throw caution to the wind and ride the boat. And Mat's response is surprising. He says much more. Like he actually has a lot of affection for the girls, and he is very much committed to saving them, or at least warning them,
as we see later in this second part of the chapter. Very committed.
GCS. Yeah, very much so. So Matt sort of hastily packs up his stuff, including his fireworks, and Tom's like, "Oh, you about ready to sell those yet?" And Matt's like, "No, you crazy? Not until I find out how they work. Besides, imagine how much fun it'll be when I set them all off at the same time."
Tom's like taking every opportunity. Get rid of them, buddy. When are you going to get rid of them?
Yes. And Matt is taking every opportunity to get under Tom's skin about them as well. He's just winding him up all the time. So they get off the boat, and it's driving rain outside, and now they're in the muddy streets, and it's raining, and it's did they say it's nighttime? But I imagine that it's nighttime,
Yes.
like it's in the dark. Oh yes, because then they set off on their search, and Tom just wants to go sleep. But so they get off the boat, and it's muddy, and they almost immediately walk past a shop with herbs hanging in the windows with a potter next door. It's like the girls are right there. You just walked right past them. Matt reckons that they can ignore looking in the mall completely. He says, when Tom says, you're never going to find anyone here, look at the mud in the streets, blah, blah, blah. He goes, we can ignore this part of the city because women like things smelling good and looking good. Just this awful, awful generalization, which is also completely off the mark. But that's his rationale. So he just says, like, we'll go find an inn, and then we can start searching. So they find an inn. So they get out of the muddy section. They get into the city proper. They pass through the gates, which are unguarded in the rain. And here, Villy, the streets are paved. And they find an inn called the White Crescent, where Matt basically just dumps his stuff in his room. It says he doesn't even check if there's a bed. Like, he dumps his stuff in the room and just goes straight downstairs again with his coat and his quarterstaff. And he smashes a spicy fish stew, and he just wants to head out to go looking for the girls. And as he does, Tom sort of, gets up to come along with him, and Matt is surprised. But Tom is insistent, and he says that he is also, he doesn't want anything to happen to those girls either, and he's definitely going to come along and help. He also says that people talk to gleemen, right? Like, he might be able to get some information that people wouldn't be as eager or as willing to give up to a complete stranger, but gleemen people feel a kind of affinity for to. And he does this a lot later in the story. Him and Julian, actually, don't they? The two of them work together as sort of like ferrets for information. They go out ahead of, I can't even remember who they were traveling with. Is it Matt? Probably.
I think so.
Like, going around looking for information in inns and stuff, and they make quite a good pair, the two of them. I think they actually become like pretty fast friends.
Well, sure.
Okay. For now. In my mind, they will.
In next week's 180.
Yes, exactly. Tom kills Julian. So they start to methodically then go from inn to inn, inquiring about both Comar, the large man that called Ravine Great Master, and the girls. And Matt mentions that he's pleased to see that Tom is actually limiting his drinking, because after the state that he found him in Tarvalon, he didn't know how Tom was going to do. He said he was pretty much abstaining on the boat, but he wasn't sure that Tom would just stay sober when they were on land. And I think it was Daniel Green or someone in a YouTube video I heard recently talk about a summary of this book in which he mentions the not the evolution, and it's not the healing of Tom, but Tom comes from a pretty bad place, and while he's traveling with Matt, he sort of sorts himself out a bit, and Matt kind of gives him direction again, and Tom comes back to his sort of former self. If not quite as cocky, he becomes a little bit more subservient, is also not the word, but he kind of starts deferring to Matt a bit. Like, he's advising Matt, but he's certainly not making the decisions. If you can remember back to like Whitebridge, those days where Tom was very much barking the orders at the boys and telling them what to do and what's what. Here he's sort of going along with Matt and letting Matt take the lead, which is cool. It's cool to see Tom back in action. But it also, for me, this read-through is making a bit more sense now, how Tom switches from that leadership role to that sort of like, okay, he's just another party member, and actually does defer to our main protagonists. So anyway, 24 inns later, Matt really starts feeling the fatigue. Like he says, it feels like there's weights on his eyelids, and the sky is sort of going grey, like that pre-dawn grey. We all know that color sky, and that's not a great feeling. And
never.
Tom says as much. He says, I'm going to sleep right here if we don't go soon. This is crazy. You've walked straight past 3 inns and you haven't even realized. And Matt sort of acknowledges that, and he says, okay, cool. Look, this is the last one. We'll go into this one, and if we don't find any of them in here, then we'll go back and get some sleep. And there's something like a cup on the sign outside, which he sort of says is not quite a dice cup, but he's going to use it as a symbol of good luck. And as he walks in, he's not 2 steps in the common room, and there at a table dicing with the locals is Comar. There's a lot of sort of lead up here to the actual confrontation between Mat and Comar, but it basically boils down to Mat checking out what Comar is doing. The other people playing dice against him look really dejected. Everyone in the common room actually looks really put out by him. The barmaids are sort of like giving him nervous smiles when he pinches their bottoms and that sort of thing. And Mat is thinking to himself, he's super, super tired. He realizes his first plan is to walk over to Comar and just thump him with a stick and start interrogating him, and then he thinks that's a bad idea, and he sort of goes over to the innkeeper first, who looks also very dejected, and he's like, what's the deal with this guy? And he says, he's just here, and he's embarrassing everyone, like it doesn't need to be this way, you know, like he's sort of rubbing salt in everyone's wounds. It's really degrading and dehumanizing the way that he is treating people around here. And Mat says, why don't you just call the watch? Why don't you call the defenders of the stone? I think the defenders, right? That's what they call the city guard. And the innkeeper explains that he's much more high class than I am. He's just going to say to the defenders, no, this guy's lying. And they will clap him in chains, and they'll send the innkeeper off to man some inane job in the fingers of the dragon in the middle of nowhere or something. So he just says that calling the guard is not an option. And he explains how Comar is winning all the time with this like near perfect toss. What is it? Three sixes
Full
and 2
house.
5s. Yes, basically rolling a full house every time. And Thom says, okay, cool. You know, okay, that sounds familiar. But, you know, other people are using the same dice and they're not getting that, sort of hinting at the fact that it can't be loaded dice. And Thom says, no, that sounds exactly like loaded dice. And it's a very simple sleight of hand trick to make people think they're playing with the same dice. And then Thom actually demonstrates it to them. And they're blown away. And Mat's like, okay, I can't take any more of this. I'm just going to... And as Thom is trying to say, wait, Mat, you need to think about this. Mat just walks over and sits down at Comar's table. And Comar's like, get out of here, farm boy. You know, we're not playing for coppers here. And Mat just, without saying anything, just plonks like a gold, I think an Andorran crown down on the table. And Comar's like, okay, farm boy. Let's see what you got. Mat doesn't say anything. He just yawns and he doesn't even cover his mouth. He's just being a rude Mat. It's so great. I love it. And Comar's like, you don't say much, farm boy, but let's see what happens. So because there's already gold on the table, Comar goes for his winning dice, right? Like this is how he played the locals. Like he just plays normal until there's a big wager, and then he pulls out the loaded dice. We know from Basil Gill that Comar was a disgraced soldier because of accusations of using loaded dice in Camelin. Basil Gill had actually set that up back in Camelin already. When Mat described Comar to him and Thom, that's what Gill said about him. So the reader would know here, this is obviously loaded dice.
Some readers, not this reader.
So Comar rolls, and he rolls the full house, right? And he's sort of laughing like, you're never going to beat this farm boy, blah, blah, blah. And as he reaches over to take the dice, Mat quickly snatches them up. Comar is a bit irked by this because Mat reckons if he rolls the same dice and he rolls the same throw, and then Comar does again and Mat does again, all these eyewitnesses would have to be able to corroborate the story to the defenders of the stone when they come investigate. And then there would be some sort of, there'd be a reason for, them to call attention to the loaded dice and basically try and get him arrested. But what happens when Mat rolls the dice is he suddenly has this, he can feel his luck working. He can feel the pattern shifting around him. Like it's this really vivid and almost tangible experience that he has when he feels his luck turning. And he rolls all 6s with the loaded dice. So, I mean, like the luck is working against the physics of these like small objects and actually making it all 6s.
You can actually hear the dice sounding different as they fall.
Yes, it is. It's so great. And Mat is shocked. Like he is expecting to roll what Comar has rolled.
Yeah.
And in his shock, he basically says, and Comar is also like completely perplexed. He says to him, your luck is running out, my friend. Or Comar. He calls him Comar. Your luck is running out, Comar. And if I find out that you hurt those girls at all, I will kill you myself. Go back to Camelin. Tell Gabriel that the girls are dead or you couldn't find them. but if I find you, you're a dead man. And Comar goes, but I haven't even... And then he goes, hang on, how did you know my name? And he jumps up and he draws his sword. And Mat thinks he's all that, and he just like kicks the table, or he like lunges the table at Comar, forgetting that Comar is actually quite a big guy, and Comar basically just throws it back at him and knocks Mat off his chair, and like he sort of half loses his grip on his quarterstaff, and Comar comes at him, and immediately, and Mat can glance the sword away and knock it out of his hand with the quarterstaff, but he loses his grip on the quarterstaff, and as Comar comes closer, Mat sort of just... What I imagine is Mat sort of rolling back and putting his feet on Comar, and then rolling even further back and just pushing up with his feet so that Comar goes flying over his head, and Comar caught by surprise by this. And as he flies over his head, Mat jumps up again, he gets his quarterstaff, and he gets ready to fight Comar again, but Comar's not moving. And the way that they describe how he's lying is like his hips and his legs are on the table behind them, and his torso is hanging off and his head is touching the ground. And I don't think they actually explicitly say this, but he's just like snapped his back on the
they explicitly say it. They say it.
Do they? Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, Mat's luck is so great. It's very reminiscent of that guy falling on his dagger, that grey man falling on his dagger in Tarvalon, right? Like stabbing himself in the heart. Yeah, Comar has broken his back, and Comar sort of says in his dying like death rattle, he's saying, "You idiot! You think I'm the only person looking for those girls?" Blah blah blah. And he dies, and his eyes just glaze over. And the innkeeper and everyone is wide eyed. They're like, "Okay, you guys need to get out of here. Run now. And don't worry, I'll tell the defenders when they come here that it was a tall man with red hair, just someone that I dreamt about last night. Who
not a
did
real
this.
person. Yeah.
Not a real person at all. No. Mat and Thom then do that. They do go outside. And so what I didn't say before was that just before they go into this inn that Comar was gambling in, Mat catches a glimpse of a tall man in a coat ducking into an alley that he immediately thinks is Rand, but can't be because Mat is quote unquote off somewhere playing Dragon Reborn. That's Mat's opinion of Rand at the moment. But he legit, and we know from like, mentions of dreams that other people are having that Rand is in the city. So anyway, so this innkeeper says that he'll use this person that he dreamt of as a sort of scapegoat. So Thom basically pulls Mat away from the inn back to the safety of the White Crescent that they are staying in.
Yeah.
And they get a little bit of sleep before they're up at it again. And for the next 3 days and 3 nights, they continue to look for the girls, but now doing a much more random search because Mat has figured out that it was because of the randomness of their entry into that inn that they actually did find something. So he's trying to be random, but they're not having any luck. And it also looks like Thom is actually getting quite sick. Like he's developed quite a bad cough. He's getting sicker and sicker. But to his credit, he does not want to stop looking, and he's helping Mat out as much as he can. But all they really learn about is rumors that there's a pending attack coming from Elayne. There's rumors of war with Elayne. Then there's rumors of like invading Moiraine. And there's rumors of the return of Arthur Hawkwing's armies. There's rumors that the sea folk are busy trading, like, canceling trade and that sort of stuff. It's all this, you can tell that there's this undercurrent of dissatisfaction and angst and anxiety that is being sown around the city, much like what Moiraine and Perrin and those guys observed in Elayne. Mat also starts having bad dreams of Belal weaving a net around the girls. Sometimes the net is around the girls. Sometimes it's around Moiraine. Interesting that Mat would be having sort of not prophetic dreams, but sort of dreams representing real world goings on. These are not the kind of dreams that Belal or anyone would be pushing out, right? Like, but Mat is having a dream of sort of like a metaphorical net being woven around his friends.
But you got Perrin now there, you've got Rand there, you've got
Egwene.
all the girls there, they're all there. So everyone is just feeding on this ability to
maybe pulling bits and pieces into each other's dreams. Like, Perrin and Egwene both have,
because you assume that at the same time they basically all just pulled in pretty much days, if not the same day, if not 2 days apart from each other.
Yeah. He also starts dreaming about Rand a lot for obvious reasons. Rand is in the city. But Mat is basically just determined to win his wager against Ravine, even if it kills him. And that's how the chapter truly ends.
Psych! There's a third part. This chapter never ends. No,
Yes,
seriously, that's the end.
A lot there, though, hey?
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm just wondering what they did with Comar's body. Do they also have like a Billy who just throws people into rivers? Just make him disappear.
Well, going by the signs, the look of the streets, well, they don't say that they're in the mall with that one.
No, they specifically were not looking in the mall, and Comar wouldn't be gambling in the mall.
Potentially there's some pigs that
too much
feed off
Westworld.
Deadwood.
Feed him to the pigs.
Woo! To woo.
Woo pigs.
Switchin. Woo! Hang tai.
Okay, I think we've pretty much covered everything as it came up in that one, eh?
Yeah, that was a very long chapter. That could have been 2.
Yes, definitely. It's the chapter that's going to keep us at around about the 2-hour mark for this recording. But then let's move on to the next chapter, which is a great one in its own right. Very different, but so fucking cool. Chapter 50 called The Hammer. Take it away, Villy.
Yep. The Hammer. So it must be about the beefy boy.
Here he is.
Anyway, Perrin and Co is crossing a ferry because they took the horse route to Tyr. And it's quite apt that all of them have to get off a boat because that confused me after not reading for 2 weeks. Like, when did Perrin get on a boat? But yes.
Yeah, me too.
Yes.
I had to go read back. What the
hold
fuck
on,
is
wait,
going
no,
on?
wait. They came from... there's no river there. What? Okay, then I'm like, all right. They just crossed. It's a ferry. So they get to the other side and Perrin is overwhelmed by hundreds of smells. Not the smell of fish initially. It is from barley to rope to wood to perfumes to everything. And eventually he catches a bit of whiff of fish. And again, horses get offloaded and they move on. Now they, as obviously Perrin and Faile, Loial, Lan and Moiraine. And again, Perrin is infatuated with his wolf senses. Like he gets the smells and he's so taken by all the scent that again it is Loial that points out to him that look how shit-faced sad all these people look. Like this place is sick just like the other place. It's like, oh damn right, you're right. And in between that he had a little reach out to see if he could touch base with the wolves, but obviously a little bit out of reach in the city. And they are now going to do what they do when you pull into a city. You find an inn, and Moiraine leads them. They eventually get to an inn that is situated right next to a weaving place and a smithy. But also, it's just remarked how different, like small little almost shanty places next to places with columns that are 4 spans by 4 spans wide and brass doors that are 6 spans high. And just like it seems like it's slum and wealth mixed together, as opposed to some of the other cities where there's a definite segregation of the wealth and the elite and the rest. But yeah, they go in and Moiraine and Lan have obviously negotiated with the innkeeper there for a room, and they are taken as a lady and her guard and a manservant, and no one knows what they would take. The Ogier is the Ogier, that's all. He's always friend Ogier. But Zareen is taken for, he doesn't know, but she's plaguing his mind, the poor guy. And Moiraine is already on edge. She's obviously sensed herself that something is not right in the city. It doesn't feel right, and she is going to scout, investigate, figure out what's happening. And Lan, and the instruction is clear: stay close to the inn. And Perrin takes that as notice, goes up to the room, dumps his axe and his cloak and all the rest. Happy to see that he's got a very low bed set for a servant type man, so he knows his place. And beefy boy can't stop hearing the ringing of a hammer on anvil, and he's like, no, he's getting out of here. Get down to the common room. Can't find Loial, who's obviously buried his nose in his books. And he is going to, and can't see Faile anyway. And he pulls straight into the smithy and walks in. He sees, okay, there's multiple furnaces in there, and it's just the blacksmith busy hammering away at already cooling down piece of orange steel, and sort of walks over and gives him a hand with a bellow, but using it like he knows he should use it, not too fast, just get the temperature right for the steel.
Steady.
And he's just the smells of home. He feels he's back home. And eventually the blacksmith says to him, apprentice? And he's like, yes.
Yeah, they haven't spoken up to this point.
Yeah, no talk, just acknowledgement. And he's
barely.
He's like, okay. Gives him a piece of stock, which is steel talk for a piece of steel that needs to be worked. And Perrin's like, yeah, he's like, go what you make of it. But before that, he figured out he's making a barrel scrape, which is a tool to clean out the inside of barrels after the manufacturing of barrels.
Listen to Billy speaking like he knows all this stuff already.
Hey, you know I'm a handyman.
Authority.
And he pulls the apron off, the biggest apron he can find, because beefy boy is a beefy boy, and in the land of small people, he stands out. So he pulls a 10-pound hammer and a 5-pound hammer off the tool shelf, and he taps the piece of stock on the anvil to listen to its clang. And he's like, no, this is not rested too long in the carbon. It hasn't taken up a lot of carbon. And this I do know now from a podcast that I was listening to the other day about Damascus steel, which has enlightened me to the quality of what steel needs to carbon to be really good. Anyway, but Perrin can hear it just by a simple tap of it, and he gets the forge or the furnace going, and he gets the steel in there, and he decides to just make something simple, and he starts making a draw knife, and he hammers it in the middle, and from the first hit of the hammer, it just hammers out the middle nice and flat, and he starts shaping this tool. And eventually cutting it, he tasted the barrels, which one is the salt water, which one is just water, which one is the other one's olive oil. He knows how to work the steel. It's like just such a great chapter for me. Anyway,
it is.
And he keeps making the one, and he finishes it off, puts it off, and then the blacksmith sort of like, you're looking for a job. And he's like, no, it's like he won't be here long. And then he realizes Faile is behind him, sitting and staring at him again. It's like, oh, blacksmith, you are a blacksmith. He's like,
yeah, go figure.
Go figure. That's why they call me blacksmith. But he ends up working the tools all day long until nighttime, and not seeking payment or anything, but just really getting lost in swinging the hammer and loving making. And he ends up making a whole bunch of draw knives. Do you guys know what a draw knife is?
No, please explain it, Billy.
They explain it briefly in the story, but I've forgotten already.
Yeah, you get various shapes of them, but it's got two handles on the left and right with a sharp blade that faces towards you, and you pull on it over wood towards yourself. So in Afrikaans, they used to call them a speekscarf, what they used to make wagon wheel spokes with. And then he also runs through a couple of other tool names there that was new to me that I had to go and research, but basically all tools for making a lot of them barrels. So this guy's got obviously some barrel business happening over there. And they Faile as so he cleans up, and he's now aware of her eyes and her scent immediately. Now the herbal scent is around him. He can't get this woman out of his head, man. He's in trouble. But he quickly changes, puts the shirt on, and then the smith says to him, like, yeah, you know what? You take this hammer. This is a good hammer. And one day when you think about going back to being a blacksmith, maybe this can get you started. And he's like, awesome. They walk back to the inn. He goes straight back to his room, puts the axe in the one hand and the hammer in the other hand, and the hammer is heavier than the axe, and it's kind of torn between the two, but the handles are sort of the same length. And just axe and hammer going through, and eventually Lan puts his head in there. It's like, get your ass into the other room. We need to. There's business to discuss.
Yeah.
And he still wants to give him like, just stop calling me farm boy and blacksmith, and like, my name is Perrin. Like, beefy boy's an angry boy now. He just having a little bit of identity struggles there. Beefy boy is a tool boy. He's making tools today. So they hop in there, and Faile gives him a clever chirp. Oh, finally, now she can tell us what you hear, because she won't say a thing until she's there. But they very promptly get shut up by Moiraine, who's now, she's on high alert level. And now this Lord Salmon, what did we decide on last time?
Let's go with Salmon.
But
he's the lord of a fishing
You
city.
got to think about it. They are in the fishing village where
Yeah.
Swan comes from, and every reference that she has is silver pike in the boats and fish heads and guts, and so
we'll ignore the fact that you spell salmon differently, but okay.
All right. There's that.
There's a missing L, but anyway.
Anywho, is actually Bilal. Now, how she got that information is beyond me. I can't decipher it, but she went and did Aes Sedai things. I don't know what. And they obviously, Perrin is like, well, have you warded that we're talking like this? Have you warded this room? She's like, no, she can't even dare, because they'll stand out like a flashing beacon in a mile radius. And it's like, okay, now everyone's like, Faile is like stressing out, like, oh, well, I don't know if I signed up for this. And Loial himself as well is like, okay, well, this is not good. The little panic stations. And she sort of says to Loial, if you want to go, you can go. Like, you're free to go. And he's like, ooh, well, I haven't quite finished my book, and I'm after Rand and Perrin's my friends, and he just wants to have a little whinge. And it's like, well, then stop your whinging. Like, if you're with us, this is it. This is the quest. This is the thing that we're on. Like, do not deviate from that. Faile takes this opportunity to say, well, ooh, can I get out of here as well? She's like, no, you stay. You in this now. You're part of the party. You're not going anywhere. And that's pretty much coming to the end.
Moiraine asks Loial what he knows about Bilal.
That's right. So Faile has a little chirp about how did with Ogi now? She's like, Ogiers have long lives and great memories, and they don't forget things. And what has been 100 generations for us has only been 30 generations to the Ogier. And he's like, well, what he's read is Bilal has sort of always had this thing about jealousy to the other Forsaken and wanting more, and his other name, Netweaver. And that alone is enough for her. It's like, okay, cool. He's a schemer. He's something more she didn't know. Now, the other thing that pops up is the Aiel and Lan saying, hey, but by the way, I've seen 3 Aiel on the roofs between the chimneys, docking, diving. And if I've seen 3, it means there are at least 30 in that area. It's like when you're watching dolphins, you see one dolphin, there's 11 in the water at least.
Or when you see a cockroach, if there's a cockroach sitting out in the open, there's 1,000 of them sitting in all the nooks and crannies that you don't see. Yeah.
So that cockroach is the one that got expelled because the living space just got too cramped. It's like, right, Steve, you're out. We've had enough of you. Go
Steve, get sacrificed. Knocked another one out from behind a chimney. Like, this is my hiding spot.
And it's Perrin and Moiraine and Lan are also leaving. They have to go do another task. More of a she wanted to do it alone, but Lan sort of put his foot down, like, no, he's not going to allow her like the last time to go alone. And there was a bit of correction where she said, I have to go, or we have to go, and they're going to look for a way into the stone. But it's too dangerous. The rest of them must stay home, and Perrin then goes to bed thinking about his hammer and his girlfriend.
He goes to have a little thinky session again.
Beefy boy's a thinky boy.
Didn't Faile try and follow him into the room or something at the end of this chapter?
She tries to follow him everywhere.
Because he just slams the door and goes, no, I'm not talking now. I'm going to have a little thinky session.
No, that was a different inn. Previous
inn.
That was
Ilian. That was at easing the badger.
Right.
She wanted to ease his badger, I think.
He slammed the slatted door in her face.
All right, I'm confusing inns and badges and Perrin's thinky sessions
And falcons.
and falcons. There's a thing as well. Like I've noticed in Ilian, at the end of the chapter, Moiraine just busts in again and says, "Samael rules in Ilian," and in the end she comes back on this one is like, "Belel Lu rules in Tears." Like, where have you been? How do you find these things out, woman? What were you doing? Later on, do we have chapters where we see her point of view and what the fuck she was up to?
I absolutely would like to know how she finds out these tidbits. Like,
yeah, and she
what
names
is it that
them.
she
Like,
goes
she's only
and
been
does?
gone like an hour and a half or some shit. How do you know? Where did you go? Man.
Okay, so she was gone longer because they pulled in and it was fresh after the rain, which was in the morning, and which makes me not think there's them coming in after the big storm, because Perrin says it smells like recent rain, and obviously the damp and the heat that he's feeling.
Now, look, when I say hour and a half, I mean a short amount of time. I don't mean exactly 90 minutes.
Maybe they go track down some eyes and ears that might know of suspected dark friends, and maybe Lan leans over some of them a little bit and persuades them to divulge some information. I don't know, like they spent the whole day looking around for it. And also Moiraine probably knows the signs. I mean, after the dreams and stuff in Ilian, she suspected that there was something she had to go check out in Ilian, is my current theory. And she found out that Samael is out and ruling in Ilian. So if he's out, Lanfear's out, Agenor and Balthamel obviously are out. She's like, okay, the Forsaken might be out and about, and if there are people having dreams in Tyr, just like people were having dreams in Ilian, maybe there are some telltale signs that sort of give her a hypothesis to go test, and through whatever means she goes and checks her theory, and the signs that she sees lead her to that conclusion.
What do they call those little papers that you put on soap or acidity and it changes colors?
Litmus paper.
Yeah. She pulls one of those out, sticks it in the mud. Forsaken approved. Damn it.
Slaps it on random people's foreheads. Oh, Belal, identified. Maybe that's one of the tangrills she got. Is like identify a Forsaken tangrill or something.
But I mean, how bad must, if you think about it, this smith had 3 apprentices. And as useless as they were and really just mopping around and staring, all 3 of them ducked away from work because of their bad dreams.
Yeah. That's why people look the way they look and the whole city is dejected, because this is some heavy emotional, psychological warfare happening on these people.
100%.
MK Ultra shit.
Yeah, man.
I love that the blacksmith just like doesn't talk to Perrin at first. Yeah. And while Perrin is sort of like tasting the water and he knocks the stock against the anvil to listen to it, and like he's sort of picking the right tools for it and stuff, the Perrin catches a glimpse of the blacksmith and he's smiling. Like he's just carrying on working, but he's smiling because he's okay, right, this guy knows what he's about. And then later when Faile is there and Perrin's about to leave, he says to Perrin, look, man, you call yourself an apprentice, but what you've done here is the work of a master. Like the quantity and quality of tools that you produced in this smith is second to none. That's why he gives him the hammer. He goes, you should be a blacksmith, and this hammer is worth a fraction of the value of the tools that you made here in a single day. It's just cool to get that that confirmation that Perrin is also super good at that other thing that he does, not just being a wolf-born, axe-wielding white cloak slayer. He's also a fucking pro blacksmith.
It's a great piece getting into, and
it really is.
Maybe just into the character of a blacksmith. Master Luan was not a talky man either.
No.
And his wife, she was just more the smacky person. But hitting a Trolloc with a pan to death. But they basically, other than telling him, I've got orders for more draw knives that I can make, this other type of axe, AZ, whatever, which I had to figure out is like a smaller version of a thing that you would use to do a dugout canoe. An axe that doesn't have its blade this way but perpendicular, so you can sort of chop out and hollow, but this one just has a short handle that you can get into spaces to like hammer out. And he's like, and other things that I can't even remember. And he just like, all right. And then they quietly just work all day long, hammering away at steel.
Perrin is also like super confident in his own abilities. At one point, he says, or he thinks to himself, just because he knows his way around a smithy did not mean that he had any skill at smithing. That was yet to be shown. That's what Perrin thinks to himself, like, this guy is acknowledging that I know my way around a smithy, but I'm going to show him now, like, how good I am at smithing. There's a couple things here that I took note of as well. When Perrin can't sense the wolves, he says it makes him feel alone.
Yes.
That's cool.
At the end of this chapter, there is a little moment. Zareen asks him, what are you going to do? He doesn't slam a door in her face. They're still down. He says, first, I'm going to get something to eat, and then I'm going to have a think about a hammer. Like, off again on these little thinky boy missions. She must be thinking, what?
Another think? Come on.
Jesus, all this guy does.
That chapter also, I think the very last word of the chapter is falcon. In the beginning of the chapter, Perrin is thinking about how he doesn't want to call her Faile, even though Loial does. And what I realized here, and I don't know if he says as much, but maybe this is just the penny dropping for me, he is sort of sticking to Zareen as a form of defiance, because admitting that she is the falcon is admitting that Min's viewing is coming true, and that this person is going to play a significant role in his life. So as soon as he acknowledges that she is the falcon from Min's viewing, he's sort of acknowledging that, okay, she is basically going to either be part of his life or determine something in his life. And then the very last word of the chapter is falcon, like he's referring to her as falcon. So I suspect we'll see how doggedly he sticks to Zareen in the next chapters.
It's going to be interesting, but he's also purely like totally infatuated with her at this stage. She is now the beautiful woman. Like I think he's not just wondering whether she's the bad beautiful woman that he's been warned about or not. But yeah, he thinks about these things for long and hard. So that probably makes sense why the axe gets thrown away only in book 11, because it takes him 11 fucking books to decide about that.
Moiraine seems very blind to the part of the Aiel in the dragon prophecy.
That's right. I'm
sure the prophecies mention the people of the dragon and maybe some more vague sort of references to the waste or like breaking them or something like that. But she just is oblivious to the fact that they play a part at all.
To be honest, she's heard those prophecies of the Aiel side, of them coming out of the threefold land. She hasn't heard that. Yeah.
No, she hasn't heard their prophecies, but I'm sure that the Cariathan cycle makes reference to the people of the dragon or something. Okay, I'll as a callback, I'll go read the Cariathan cycle and I will pick out the parts that are relevant to the Aiel, at least to us, and see how obvious they should have been to Moiraine, if at all.
I'll go read some more blacksmithing facts and what tools do what.
This is also where Moiraine says that thing to Perrin, where she says, I've learned things in the last year, Perrin. I'm more dangerous than when I came to Eamon's Field. If I can come close to Belal, I can destroy him.
Yeah.
I mean, that's basically her saying, by the way, I leveled up and I learned Balefire.
Yeah.
So if I can sneak up to him, I can Balefire him.
Yes. Well, now that you got Balefire, look, you can fucking take out anyone.
I've been reading, like trying to figure out where Moiraine would have learned Balefire. And there's no definitive answer. A lot of people think in her time that she spent with Adelaide and Vandine, that she came across something in a book or something along those lines that, may have triggered a thought, like maybe she should be focusing more on spirit than on fire, or whatever the combination is for the weaves or something like that. Some people think that Adelaide and Vandine are specifically because they're a green and a brown, and that they chose those Ajahs specifically so that the green could learn the battle weaves and the brown could research them and sort of find things to inform them of how to get there. From their interactions between Moiraine, Vandine, and Adelaide, I don't think that Adelaide and Vandine actually did figure out Balefire, but maybe, like with the conversations about, the watches over the waves, they may have shaken something loose in Moraine's mind that allowed Moiraine to figure it out.
Was Moiraine obviously was privy to the stuff that was stolen in the period that Terangriel?
No, because she hasn't been to the tower. So the stuff that was stolen by the Black Ajah members were in the notes from Perrin to Egwene. They have not crossed paths
Nothing.
with Moiraine.
Hmm.
So
That's a mystery.
she knows Balefire. We know that. She killed the Dark Hounds with Balefire. I feel like that is irrefutable. And I know that she kills either Belal or Ishamal at the end of this book with Balefire.
Isn't it maybe just something in the turning of the pattern? Like, she's always forever going on about the strands and the pattern, and old things come to light. And
people seem to learn things out of desperation. They can come as sort of like an epiphany and be done by instinct. Nynaeve has cast Balefire.
yes,
Yeah.
You know, she doesn't have a loose theron in her head. Rand has done it, but you know, he's got the cheat. He's got the dragon in his
he's
head.
got the playbook in his head.
Written in invisible ink at this stage, but
Avienda learns or rediscovers traveling later on by herself. She's the one that comes up with it. So I think there's just like the need, and they talk about this as well in Teleanra, like how you need gets you what you want. Maybe it's just the end is coming, you know, the end is nigh. Shit is just random shit is happening, and all these Taviran
give yourself over to the Force. I mean, the one power.
Yes,
Well,
exactly.
you only find the eye of the world if you really need it.
Exactly.
And my need is great.
And I need Balefire now.
Yeah. Okay. Should we do the last one?
Yeah.
Chapter 51 is called Bait for the Net. And why don't you finish us off here, Joe?
Will do.
Wow, that was phrased really badly.
I didn't want to say don't.
Don't do that. What's with all of this innuendos tonight? Easing the badger, finishing off.
Mopping up his mess. Anyway, Nynaeve is out buying some meat, as per her agreement with Mother G, which we never mentioned. Mother G gives them the rooms for free. Big. She's getting herself some meat.
Oh, Jesus.
Billy.
It's coming apart.
What was I talking about now?
What was the arrangement that Mother G had with Nynaeve?
That's right. She said you guys could stay for free. You don't have to hire the rooms, but just buy me a piece of meat now and then. because
Purchase
meat
protein
is so
for the
expensive.
house.
Yes, purchase protein. Because the prices are so high that she can't afford it anymore. I need to breathe. She thinks this is where
should we start this one over?
Just leave it. She thinks she sees Rand down the road again. So this is the second viewing. I don't know if there's one in the last episode we did, if someone saw Rand in the streets. But Mat saw him in the lightning in the dark, and now Nynaeve sees him. And she says like he's got a flute case on his back or something. Yeah. So it's like it's not an Aiel. No. So anyway, but she loses him. He like a chariot or some chariot. What is the thing I'm looking for? A cart. That's it.
A cart.
Yeah, not a chariot. I don't think there's many chariots running around here. So a cart crosses her vision, and then he's gone. Poof, he disappears. And just then, a fisherman who's carrying a basket full of what I imagine are silverpike, gotta be, trips and falls, and the fish go flying into the air, and they land nose first into the mud, standing upright in a perfect circle. And everybody, like even the people that are in their dejected, fuck the world state, stop and go, what the? So yeah, Rand's Taviranness there is really fucking with things. And these weird things start happening, and that we'll see a lot. That comes up a lot more in the later books. Even crazier things start happening around him. Oh, yeah. But we've seen it in the previous books where he walked into a town, then everybody got married, and so this is the least of the things that have happened
in this book.
Yeah. So on her way back, now she's got the meat. She's heading back to Mother G's house. She thinks about how defeated everyone looks in the city, and how no one seems to care about anything. And she kind of brings that back to Eamon's Fielders. They had some hard years, would always pick themselves up. These people have one little setback and everything is lost and the world is over. She's not realizing, of course, that there's major forces at play here. Then she starts thinking about Egwene and how she shouldn't have to convince or explain herself. She's starting to get more and more angry as she's walking along. She's getting herself all worked up. And then she starts thinking about the Black Ajah and how she doesn't want to be the hunted. She's now the hunter, and she's going to get them. And then just a random fuck Moiraine there at the end of that thought as well. Just, because fuck Moiraine. That's why. She hates her. And she comes around the corner. She bumps into Julian, who says, like, who basically says, I found these women that you were looking for. And they're staying in the Stone of Tyr as, honored guests of the High Lord Salmon, who we know now to be Belial, you told me these were some random dark friends, but they are, in some high places. So you got to come back to Mother G's house. We're all waiting there. The other two, your friends are there. We're going to go talk about this shit, So she's like, all right. But they head back to the house, and as she enters the house, she sees Mother G there sitting on one of those high-backed chairs that she has at the dining room. But in the middle of the room, with her hands against her sides and her eyes bulging with fear. And she doesn't need to see the glow or anything. She knows that she's wrapped in flows of air. And because she's already angry from the walk back to the house, she immediately reaches out to the source, but finds herself shielded by what is described as a glass wall, like running into a glass wall, something that you can't see. And I think this is the first time that we get this discussion or this mention of shielding and how it is.
Certainly from a point of view, from a character point of view.
Yes,
Loghain was shielded, and
but what shielding feels like for a channeler who's trying to reach out.
Yeah.
All right. So like Nynaeve, of course, tries to embrace the source, but cannot. And turns out Liandrin has found them, and she's the one in the house that has shielded her. And Liandrin is all cocky and arrogant and walking up towards her, now all shielded, calling her wilder with that disdain in her voice. But before she could even finish her sentence, Nynaeve punches her in the mouth. And this is, again, I think Egwene did this in a previous chapter as well. Like, these girls, well, she lives up to her naming her as Wilder as well. She is wild. But I love it. Like, you can't touch the source, brat, just punch you in the mouth. I have other tools, and it's great that they have these other abilities.
Nynaeve probably would go to a punch before channeling naturally anyway.
Yes,
like
exactly.
Her natural instinct is punch first and then channel.
But because she was already angry coming into the house, she had the source right there. But then she just punches Liandrin in the mouth, and I just love to see Liandrin get punched in the face. And she's also with another Black Ajah there, Rihanna, not the pop singer, some other one, who gets a backhand for her efforts as well. So Nynaeve punches Liandrin in the mouth, backhands Rihanna, and just makes for the door as fast as she can. But she gets pummeled by invisible blows coming out of nowhere. So they start channeling air and just beat the shit out of her. So eventually she's getting closer to the door, but she realizes at one point she's actually on her knees, and eventually she's just curled up in a ball on the ground, just taking blows, which they do eventually stop. And she says, and Liandrin actually makes a comment like, yeah, your other friend put up way more of a fight. You're almost as bad as that other one that we had to take out, basically.
She almost went mad.
Coming back to her Sean Chan days, Egwene is not going to be taken captive by evil channelers ever again. She would rather die.
Yeah. Liandrin again.
Liandrin, that son of a daughter of a whatever. Then Rihanna as well is about to kill Mother G. She says, well, we have no use for this one. I'm just going to stop her heart, like all offhandedly. But Liandrin stops her. She's always like, you're always too quick to kill. And I'm wondering, why would she care? Is it going to draw too much attention to them? But I would, if I were them, get rid of all the loose ends right away.
Who's the Forsaken now?
Well,
Jodie, that's pretty dark.
Yeah, chosen. I prefer the term chosen. All right.
Yes, I know we do. I mean, they do.
So I'm just, it just made me think as well, like why she didn't kill
It was
him.
surprising. The level of contempt that we have for Liandrin is not unfounded. She is a reprehensible bitch. And it would very much be in character for her to kill that woman. But what is the rationale she gives? Like, she will serve the Great Lord or something? Like,
yeah, if you kill her, she'll only be able to serve the Great Lord. But if you keep her alive, maybe later on, she'll be of some use. It's a very loose kind of whatever.
Very loosey-goosey.
Yeah, anyway.
I don't even blame Robert Jordan. I blame Liandrin.
Just blame her for everything. COVID, her fault too.
Stupid logic. Yeah.
Yeah. So Yeah, but then they actually let Mother G loose, and they kind of, and Leandrin threatens her, says, "You are going to be good, right? You're not going to tell anybody about us." And she's like, "No, who would I tell anyway? Like if I went to the High Lords, they'd probably just, kick me out or wouldn't even let me in, or they'd beat me or throw me in chains or whatever. Because High Lords don't seem like very nice guys in general. This is not a city I would like to live in."
Mm-mm.
But while she's got the gag, the air gag off her mouth as well, she also tells to Nynaeve, or apologizes to Nynaeve. But Nynaeve's like, "Listen, there's nothing you could have done. She's not going to hold anything against her." Amiko and Joya are there as well. And they are just about around the corner when they start bringing Nynaeve there, where they find Elayne's in between the two of them. She's got a swollen cheek and a split lip, so they're all putting up fights. But Egwene is unconscious on the floor, and her face is so swollen that she's barely recognizable. Like she went down fighting. They had to knock her the fuck out just to get her to stop fighting back. And this makes Nynaeve even angrier, which is a pity that she's shielded, because this would have been great. Yeah. And yeah, so again, this other thing, like Egwene just beat me to death rather than take me captive. That's how hard she fought. So anyway, they take them out the back. They pick up the slumping Nynaeve. They got some guards as well. They're taking them out the back to a waiting coach, which is like the most ominous looking coach you've ever seen. Like a black lacquered thing with silver lightning bolts on the side.
A clenched fist with silver lightning bolts in it.
Exactly. Like you look at this thing and the street is empty.
They're full of themselves, man. They're like absolutely just.
But that's a recurring theme. In fact, that's like the reason a lot of them turn to the shadow in the first place is because of some of these traits that they are constantly putting on display.
If they left them for long enough, they would. If say Rand stayed in the Two Rivers, no one ever figured out he was there, and all of this started happening, and they had 5 years to just chill out in the Two Rivers. I reckon the Forsaken would have killed half of themselves by then.
Yeah.
And they still would not have Kalandor. It's like all they would have done is just started a few wars between cities and killed done half the work that they needed to do.
Ravin is already talking about killing Belal later. Can't kill him, not yet.
They just shit, yeah.
Okay.
So anyway, this very ominous looking black coach is waiting outside with like a team of 6 horses, and nobody in the town, they've all emptied the streets. They've all decided they'd rather be somewhere else because it's blatantly obvious some dark, horrible shit is happening here. And that's when she runs into Julian as well. And she's like, "Julian, how could you?" And he's like, "Oh, I'm so sorry." But when he looks at Leandrin, he looks like he's a puppy dog just waiting for, and then you realize like, oh shit, she's used compulsion on him. And this is, I mean, this goes back to the beginning of book 2, where Leandrin's in Faldara, where Leandrin had that thing where I have my little tricks. And we imagine this confirmed now that it's compulsion, not just her way of manipulation.
Yes, or her version of it.
Yeah. Because the look on his face, on Julian's face, and his just this willingness to obey, that's very compulsion-like. Yeah. Anyway, that's what I think. Nynaeve again threatens to kill Leandrin if Egwene doesn't wake up, if she dies. But Leandrin's like, just no, she's not going to die. We need you alive as bait, because dead bait catches nothing. And Nynaeve quickly comes up with her own little game, claiming that they are not alone in the city. Like, you think they only sent us 3 non-Ice? We're not even full Aes Sedai yet. There's only 3 of us. You are the ones that are the bait, and you've fallen for the trap. And Elayne, sharp as a tack that she is, joins Nynaeve's little deception by starting an argument like, "Don't tell them everything. No, you're not going to let them know, But I get the feeling that Leandrin doesn't fall for it, really.
No. Unfortunately. It was a valiant effort.
Yeah. It was very good. It was very like on the spur of the moment.
It takes Nynaeve by surprise. Like, Nynaeve sort of has to, oh, she's playing along. Cool.
Good. Thank you.
Yeah.
But anyway, she tells them, and Leandrin tells them as well, like, once we're done with you, using you as bait, you will tell us everything. The great Lord Belal is bringing 13 Fades with him. And then that's when they shiver like, oh shit, Belal, because they know that name. And that's how, this chapter ends with Elayne and Nynaeve screaming in terror and Leandrin and Rihanna laughing as the coach heads to the stone, and we fade to black. Now, small amendment. I would have preferred this chapter end with just them screaming and not some comical, maniacal laugh from the bad guys as well. But that's just how it played out in my head, you know?
Yeah.
Kind of
It is
detracted
comical
from
and maniacal.
that. Okay, so it's not just me.
Let them have it, because they're gonna get their what comments. They
upcomings
make me fucking angry.
Yeah. They also realize, obviously, that 13 Midral and there are 13 Black Ajah sisters. They are going to be turned to the shadow.
Hence the screaming.
Yes.
Yes.
Nynaeve hears Elayne screaming before she realizes she is also screaming.
A lot of screaming going on. And then some maniacal laughter.
I mean, imagine that carriage. Like as it's riding past, like people in the street, what the fuck is going on in there?
Yeah. We laugh. Villy's very serious. He's not finding this funny at all.
No, I'm like,
he's upset.
Fuck Leandrin. Fuck her 12 friends.
I know.
Just
well done, Robert Jordan. Hey, like how much do you hate Leandrin? I remember to this day how much I hated Leandrin back in the day.
Pouty mouth and stupid braids and
now that pouty mouth is bleeding now, so you got that.
Not bleeding enough.
I've said it before and I'll say it again. Galina Casban is another person that you're going to end up hating.
Don't say that name in my presence.
But they get what's coming to them, especially Galina. Oh, she becomes Guy Shane to like Savannah, I think, or something.
Oh, yeah. Wow. So much radicalness coming.
Bucket and bucket loads. Nynaeve thinks Rand is still on the Elmouth Plain.
Yeah. Playing at Dragon Reborn.
The whole crew's there. Yeah. Who's not in tier right now from the original onset? Just Min.
Min.
Huron.
Red shirt number 3. He's not there either.
No, red shirts.
Min is probably the only character of note that is not there. Mat's there, Perrin's there, Moiraine, Loial, Lan.
Yeah. All 3 boys, all the girls. They're retainers. Everyone's there. And nobody knows that everyone else is there. Like each little group is unaware that the other groups are in the town as well.
And a few hundred Aiel just skulking around the roof.
Yeah.
I like how as well Lan and Moiraine say, no, stay in the inn. We're going to go and find a way into the Stone of Tyr. Oh, excuse me? This impenetrable fortress that no one's conquered in 1,000 years. We're just going to pop out and find a way in quickly. Well, all right then.
It would come across that impenetrable fortress. No one has tried to conquer it in 1,000 years because it takes those guys just a couple of minutes, those Aiel, and they're like, oh, we're in.
I think they say that people have tried. I think earlier in the story when they mention it, people have tried. It's been there for, what did we say, 3,000 years? I mean, Ilian has been at war with Tyr a number of times, I think 3 or 4 times. I think it's established that people have tried and failed. So, which just makes like Moraine's simple task for Lan. No, go find me a way in there. I guess find us a way in there.
Yeah. And what does he say with warmth? Yes, Aes Sedai, or something.
Yes.
He uses a nice honorific, but he's like, yes, I'm back in it. I'm back in her good graces. Yes. Let's go.
It's in here also where it confirms Nynaeve is 7 years older than Egwene.
Yeah, she used to change her nappies or diapers for our North American listeners. Her swaddling
Nynaeve
clothes.
would have been doing that when she was 7 or 8?
Yep.
Yeah, she would have been the worst 7-year-old.
Yeah.
Villy, how old is Jamie now?
Turning 7.
Okay, can you imagine him changing nappies?
I can't even imagine him closing a tap yet. But then again, he hasn't been raised in the 2 rivers.
Yeah. Yeah, if he had been raised in the 2 rivers, he'd be a different kid.
When Nynaeve is walking around hating on the Black Ajah, she mentions that she hates Moiraine almost as much as Leandrin.
Yeah.
This is after Leandrin has sold them to the Seanchan. Right? Like, she hates Moiraine so much.
Why the hate? Why?
She feels like she could have helped Egwene cope with channeling, and that she would have, and she even sort of like brushes away, like I could have helped Rand somehow.
Yeah.
She blames Moiraine for upsetting their lives completely.
I
Moiraine
think
is the reason
that
all
is
this
her
is
own
happening.
guise. I think she's just
Absolutely
jealous about Lan.
She's convincing herself. She's clinging to that.
In that stretch of the chapter where she says, "I could have done something for Rand," and then there's a note. There's the next sentence is like, even though she knew it wasn't true. Like she knows she's trying to fool herself. It's just completely irrational. Her hate is just.
She's looking for
blinding her.
someone to blame or somewhere to focus her emotions, whether those emotions are, grief and hate and fear, all wrapped up in one. Moiraine is the unfortunate target for all of that.
That's why Elayne has become such a. I suppose in my first read, you just pick up on the superficial or this with what is on the surface. Where now all of a sudden you see how their personalities bring sort of a balance to the group, and how Elayne is just the cool-minded, calm,
100%,
just levels them out right down to that smack through the face, and quick with her words. Like, she is not just there because she's strong in the power.
She's sharp. She deduces things in the tower, like when they're talking about the randomness of the Black Ajah members that left. She's the one that deduces that obviously they have many more members here because they look to have specifically chosen ones to leave that would make it look random. Like none of them shared any traits or histories or anything like that. She is sharp as a tack, Elayne. She's got knowledge from being educated as a royal, like knows stuff about the Aiel. She knows stuff about diplomacy, knows stuff about the cities they're going to. She is extremely valuable to that dynamic.
Oh, absolutely.
She's handy with a needle. She divided all of their skirts for riding while they were on the ship.
She did.
She's planning ahead. She knows when they get off the ship they're going to be riding horses a lot. Let's sort some
practical.
Shit out.
Yeah.
From
No,
knowing,
I like her.
smoothing over the situation between when they meet Avienda and Bane and Chayad. She's like trying to help the dynamic there because she knows a lot about stuff, to knitting and sewing some stuff, like whatever you need her to do. She's in the background quietly just doing it.
But let's be honest, she didn't have much else to do during the daytime on the Data, or what were they, on the barge that they were.
She was just looking after Nynaeve the whole time.
Because they were just either vomiting, and then she said, I might as well just sit and sew. Like, give me a dress, something else to
in
do.
between holding a bowl for Nynaeve to puke in, I'll get some needlework done.
I think Egwene says in that chapter, like, there wasn't a span of 10 minutes in which Nynaeve didn't vomit. That's a lot. All right. Let's move on to favorite moments. Jody, you look surprised. What's your favorite moment?
I am so convinced that we all have the exact same favorite moment.
I'm so convinced that I thought that you would pick that one, and I picked one that was different. But let's hear what you have.
Me? Oh, right. I'm going to go with our beefy boy zoning out and doing some smithying, just to the way that chapter's written. I like the little lull in the story where they're not being chased by dark hounds or Forsaken trying to kill them, and he works with a hammer, and him and the master, the other smithy, not saying anything to each other, just this understanding between them and just getting on with it. And then like time just not becoming an issue, and just the day going away, and it was great. I loved it.
Yeah Same. And I mean, that was my knee-jerk reaction choice as well. Like, I was like, that is my favorite section of this stretch. I mean, a lot of the other stuff is also quite hectic and unpleasant. So,
Billy, did I steal yours as well? Was that yours?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's not even something else that I've thought of. Like, I was just sucked into that. Yeah. And I mean, also because it's so true to the working of steel, and it's just, I love it.
Yeah. It's like it seems. I mean, like, I'm some kind of authority on the subject matter, but it seems correct. It seems like it is based in reality, which is cool, and in details that are interesting. Like the whole normal water versus salt water versus olive oil for quenching the steel, like having a different effect on the metal and stuff. That's all. It's actually quite interesting to me, and obviously to Villy.
I love the look of steel being shaped, the working with it, but also the working of steel tools. I love my woodwork. I always like anything that I can sink my hands into and get it dirty excites me.
Yeah, that is a very cool section. So, I mean, okay, look, so, I mean, that was, if I'm being honest with myself, that was also my favorite moment. So I'll relegate what I've written down here as my favorite moment to an honorable mention, which is Nynaeve punching Liandrin in the face. It
Definitely
was
deserves a mention.
so satisfying. The combination of obviously our shared hatred of Liandrin and seeing her get punched in the face, the comical nature of it, the fact that Liandrin and the other sisters thought, okay, cool, I've got her shielded from the source, so we're safe. She's been neutralized. The fact that Nynaeve, traditionally, even before she knew she could channel, would not hold back from like punching someone in the face, so they just grossly underestimated her. Just that whole scene, and then backhanding. Who is it? It wasn't Rihanna, or
it was Rihanna? Yes,
was it Rihanna? To the extent that she fell over, like she's like sitting on her butt on the ground, like Nynaeve floored her with the backhand.
Oh, let's be honest.
Was just such a great scene.
These Aes Sedais are not used to being punched in the face.
No,
they are not. They have not crossed paths with Nynaeve Almira.
Black Ajah.
I mean, who would dare punch an Aes Sedai in the face?
Yeah. Nynaeve.
It's the only human on planet Earth.
Oh, it's so good. Another cool honorable mention is when Moiraine says, I've learned things in the last year. I am much more powerful than I was when I came to Eamon's Field. And if I can get close to Belal, I can destroy him. I feel like after she sort of failed to have any effect on Agenor at the Eye of the World, she probably realized, I need to skill up here.
Yeah.
I need to give us something in this fight or we are going to get steamrolled. And the fact that you went and learned Balefire, she says at one point that she would be stilled for even knowing how to use it. Not using it, knowing it, she would be stilled for. So she's all in, right?
Tough
like she is going.
Calls for tough measures, man.
Yes.
Philly, did you choose a favorite moment?
Yeah, exactly the same as yours.
He agreed with you, right? The smithy.
Okay. I thought you were going to choose a different one.
No.
Honorable mentions now. All right,
no. This is right up.
I was going to pick one of those other two as my favorite moment, but like I said, if I'm honest with myself, my favorite part of the stretch was that. Because now we're also set up for, the girls are captured, and now what? The trap is baited. Yeah. Now all that is left to do is to spring it and to see what the fallout of that is.
And watch it all fall to shit. That was the worst thing that they could have done is use those girls as bait. Now Rand is in town and Moiraine is in town. She knows Balefire. Lan is here, the Aiel. You guys are going to cock.
Mat, Perrin, the whole gang is here. The Aiel here is just now... You've drawn the attention of the good guys, and now you're going to get your asses kicked. So if you, our loyal listeners, have favorite moments of your own that you would like to share with us or have us talk about on the show, please do send those in to us at Blood and Ash Pod on Twitter. We have more social media links in the description of the episode. And we are eager and waiting to hear from you guys about anything, whether it's a small, minute detail or a big theory that you might have spanning any of the books. None of your submissions need to necessarily concentrate on the episode that we're on. We've had plenty of callbacks that harken back to episodes in previous books, and we're more than happy to read them on air, especially if it is interesting or just a fun thought experiment or casts some more light on some of our own confusion, which is substantial.
I thought you were going to say cast some more doubt. In my mind, that was going to be your next word.
Or dismantle any of our theories and, take them off the table. Literally anything you guys want us to talk about is more than welcome. So do use those social media links and also get your friends to join in. Don't be the only person exposed to our inane ramblings. Share the pain with your friends and family. Get them involved. Drag them down with you. Obviously, the more the merrier. The more people that are talking about this, the more cool stuff we'll be able to talk about. And that's ultimately what we are trying to do. in our next episode, which will be is it appropriate to call it a season finale? Like it's the last episode of season 3. It's our season finale. Thanks, Joe, for the justification. It's the season finale of season 3, the last stretch of chapters for the Dragon Reborn, which are chapters 52 through 56, called In Search of a Remedy, which I imagine is Mat taking Thom to Mother G and then adding some pieces together. I don't know. I'm speculating. I've obviously not read ahead, so I don't know. And then the final chapter is called The People of the Dragon, which gives me goosebumps just reading it.
I've literally
so
got goosebumps.
goddamn exciting. In fact, I'm just going to stop talking now so I can
Let's go read.
Actually, that's exactly what I'm going to do tonight because we're finishing a bit earlier. I'm going to go read some more chapters. So on that extremely exciting note, I will say adios to my good friends Jody and Billy.
Bonum nocte.
Oyadeng, mi baratnas.